Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about a very large and powerful winter storm that will be already making its way into the west coast, mainly California and Oregon, in the coming 24, even less than 24 hours. But this thing will not just affect the west coast. Unlike the first system that we saw over the past few days that hit the west coast and kind of disintegrated across the Midwest, they're now only dropping a little bit of snow right there, as you can see on a map across Iowa. This one will strengthen as it passes through the west and explode into a pretty big system across the Central Plains. Definitely not the biggest one of the year, but definitely one that is going to make, again, unfortunate timing. You could see heading into New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. A lot of rain across some areas, lots of thunderstorms. We have an abnormally warm air mass, which is concerningly going to be supporting some strong and, again, severe weather, and also quite a bit of snow. And then afterwards, we could get some cold air and potentially, again, there's still some differences on the track between the systems, so there's still quite a bit of uncertainty. However, overall, we're looking at a storm nonetheless. No matter which model you look at, it's just that each one kind of has its differences. Some cities seeing snow, some seeing rain, according to each different individual model. I advise you guys to click on the region in the description box below. You could scroll down and click on the region where there's little blue numbers, and you'll skip just to your region of the United States, because this video is realistically going to be pretty long, so I don't want you watching the whole thing waiting just for me to get to your region. So skip ahead, and I will begin talking about the Northwestern United States right now, as that is one region that is going to be very significantly impacted by this system. But I will go beyond this system and show you the pattern, because the overall pattern for you guys across the Northwest and Southwestern Canada is going to be very active. Right now we are dealing with a little kind of, I guess I call it yesterday precursor. It's not the actual storm system itself. It is providing a little bit of rain and snow for Washington, Oregon, into Nevada, as well as a coast, British Columbia. But do note that thing really quickly peters out, and we see it reinforcing kind of shots from a separate storm system. You can see further towards the north that's going to be making landfall into British Columbia. Now, there's going to be quite a bit of snow with this, quite a bit of rain. You could see overspreading again as early as into tomorrow morning. So that's what I meant by this system being less than 24 hours away from some folks. And you can see Seattle, Portland, you guys are all rain. So the big cities that typically see rain, you'll be seeing rain. There isn't profound amounts of cold air, but it's not as warm as we've been seeing with the previous systems. So you can see the mountains definitely pick up on some snow, and you can see the flow starts intensifying here. So this system up here originally kind of brings in a cold front, but this is where we start seeing a low pressure intensify and develop. And you can see we obviously see very, very heavy snowfall rates across Oregon, southern Idaho. The northern parts of the area here across the Northwest will start abating with their precipitation once Friday kind of comes to a close. Alberta, Saskatchewan, those southern areas, southern British Columbia, you'll continue seeing some snow, but again, it will be mainly done by early Saturday, I would say, morning. Notice though that further south across Oregon, Idaho, into Wyoming, especially again southern central areas of those states, you guys are going to be just seeing the beginning of this as this thing continues intensifying across northern California. So some very, very heavy snow across these areas. Further north, you can see them mainly drying out. So as I push this through into now early Sunday, January 1st, we do see this system move towards the north and east slightly, so that brings in some more snow into western Idaho, all of central Wyoming, as this thing kind of becomes more of a plains system. And you can see southwestern Montana as well getting impacted by that. So by the time this system is done, it's Tuesday, early Tuesday morning, exiting the northwest. It's again, we already have another system further, you can see towards the south, making its way in here. But just from this system, total precip, nothing incredible for the Northwest. Still on top of what we've been already seeing, which is quite a bit of rain and snow. You can see this is definitely going to cause some problems. Montana, again, Saskatchewan, most of Alberta, you guys aren't going to be seeing much precipitation from this, if any at all. Total snowfall, pretty impressive, especially across some of the other areas that I didn't really see much snow from the first system we saw yesterday or a couple days ago, because it was slightly warmer. You can see that there definitely will be areas picking up a decent amounts of snow. You know, there are winter weather advisories, I believe, across a vast majority of these areas. Do notice though, it really starts showing the maximum of the snowfall across Nevada, southern Idaho, Wyoming, especially Wyoming there. So not really Montana. And in northern, again, Washington, Oregon, and northern Idaho seeing lesser amounts. Still some stuff nonetheless. And again, some cooler temperatures, nothing incredible, nothing what we saw in terms of that cold air, just a little bit more seasonal. Do note though, I want to emphasize that while this system's gone for you by Tuesday, you're going to see more activity. Maybe a little bit of a break Tuesday, Wednesday for the general west, though you can see right there, boom, on Thursday of next week, we have yet again another system moves through. I'll be obviously providing you more details on that as you get closer in time, because the west just looks very active, and it looks as if there will just be storm after storm after storm, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself. But if I take a look at that 384-hour accumulation map in terms of total precip, you can see that it really starts adding up once we see that system after system. And again, you know, the models do have a disagreement on the long range. Regarding the short range, let's take a look at what the European model now shows for this storm system. Again, the disagreement, thankfully, for this system is across the plains and Midwest, the most, I guess, level of disagreement. You can see that the European, just like the GFS, introduces the system into Friday, so tomorrow across the Northwest, continues it into Saturday, maybe with the European a bit more of a northern track, but really nothing too incredible and nothing to make too much, I guess, of a notice towards. And you can see that this thing, again, it does begin pushing, I guess, that secondary band of snow into Wyoming on Sunday and Monday, but for the rest of the Northwest, by, I would say, late Friday, early Saturday, it's also done for you guys. You can see that the European does bring in a slightly stronger system than the GFS on Tuesday, but that's, again, already a separate system. Total rainfall amounts pretty similar for the Northwest as what the GFS was showing. Broad area, especially heavy across southern Idaho, Oregon, and Wyoming in terms of total snowfall. Also pretty heavy, especially across states like Wyoming, where this thing really adds up, especially the southern areas. But again, even Washington gets in on some of that snow. So that's the Northwest forecast. The National Weather Service, you can see, has advisories up, so stay tuned to your local office for more details. Let's start talking about the Southwest. This is a region that's going to be really impacted. Way more, I would say. Well, not way more, but substantially more than the Northwest. So let's take a glance at this. Again, right now we do have, I guess, the precursor that went through Nevada. It's right now at Nevada. If I were to show you the radar, right now this precipitation is to do with that little precursor. You can see it's mainly fallen apart now. Still snowing across the larger cities like Flagstaff and into southern Utah and whatnot. But this is the main system, and it's already beginning to move in, but it's going to be slow moving, and it's going to take its time. So notice as I play this into Friday, so tomorrow we do see a lot of snow move into Nevada, Oregon. Notice a lot of this, a lot of the mountainous areas that typically see snow will start off as rain across California. As this thing begins to intensify, you can see we do see some thermal cooling. So basically, the heavier the precip falls, and we see a little bit more cool air introduced from the upper levels of the atmosphere as that rain falls. And again, you know, the temperatures here are very borderline, so that snow begins converting into wet, heavy snow. To note, though, you know, we'll be seeing heavy snow across northern Nevada, northern Utah, and into western Colorado for much of the day on Saturday, beginning pretty much Friday already for a lot of these areas. But this thing really starts intensifying Saturday late in the afternoon and into Sunday overnight. That's when California is going to be picking up the Sierra Nevada and Nevada itself a lot of snow, very heavy snowfall. Prior to that, there will be some areas that obviously see some snow, but it will be a lot more isolated to higher elevations. This is where that snow starts falling into lower elevations. Now, it is a pretty quick moving system once it starts intensifying, but these precipitation rates are nothing short of incredible, and you can see all across northern Nevada, Utah, the snow continues. This thing brings heavy rain, obviously, for the valley area, so if you live across the big cities, San Francisco, Sacramento, northern, central, even southern California, you guys will be seeing rain. Notice Nevada seeing rain, and this thing, thankfully, does bring rain into and snow into states like Arizona and New Mexico. I say thankfully because a lot of these areas have been kind of missed by some of these systems. But notice that by Sunday, it's mainly done for California with the snow and rain, but it's pushing into Arizona and into New Mexico, much of Utah, Colorado. Now you can see the Rockies definitely picking up a good amount of snow from this, and it begins to abate by Tuesday. But you can see the GFS introduces yet another system right on its heels. So I guess I'll just show you that as well, because that's going to be occurring into Tuesday while this system pulls away already. On Monday, Tuesday, we have another system. The Southwest also looks extremely active in the long range. Again, not typical with a La Nina pattern, but that's what we're going to be looking at. Precip-wise, from, I guess, that big system and that little guy that follows it, you can see there will be rainfall liquid amounts up to maybe even a foot across some of the mountainous areas. Again, not all of that will be rain. It'll start off as rain for some and as snow, though you can see the Wasatch picking up a lot, northern Nevada as well, into Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. This is definitely good news for the drought-stricken areas, and you can see the valley areas also picking up a lot of rainfall, relatively speaking, especially on top of what has already fallen. Total snowfall, very impressive, especially across northern Nevada. Some very unusual very heavy snowfall amounts. Notice Utah, New Mexico as well, sorry, Arizona here, Colorado also picking up a lot of snow. That is definitely good. And some of these amounts across the Sierra, once this thing starts taking off and intensifying, especially the southern central areas, could really pick up, again, 4 to 6, even 7 feet, as the National Weather Service said. So that is definitely a system that is going to be bringing some once in a few years impacts for the peaks here. And again, this thing is going to be unique as it's going to start intensifying well on its way already through the through the mountains there. So definitely an interesting storm. Obviously, the National Weather Service, because of this, has already issued plenty of flood warnings where the rain will be, plenty of winter storm warnings. Again, the northern areas of the Sierra won't be seeing as much snowfall. Obviously, it will still be significant, especially when you add that precipitation from that rainfall, but the snow by itself will be a bit more mellowed out. So let's take a look at some of these areas. You can see heavy rain, rain/snow, heavy snow, so that will obviously limit some of that. But you can see snow 2 to 4, right? Snow 1 to 3, but then look, this is rainfall, right? New precipitation amounts with that rain and snow. 2 to 3 inches. 2 to 3 inches. That is incredible rain amount, and will definitely be, causing some issues there. If you look at the southern Sierra, near towards Mammoth Lake and a bit towards the west, right here, this is where we could start really picking up some incredible snowfall amounts. You could see 10 to 14, 9 to 13, 8 to 12, 19 to 25, 10 to 14. So these amounts, you can see how that quickly adds up into the feet, and you can see 4 to 6 feet possible. That is obviously mainly towards the higher elevated areas, the extremely high elevated areas, 9,000 feet plus. Still, an incredible event. Good news though for the snowpack, but obviously there's going to be some very short-term concerns, to say the least. Notice Utah, the Wasatch, Salt Lake City also under winter storm warning. I don't know if Salt Lake's under it, not really, but just west or just east, you could see these winter storm warnings. These areas are going to see quite a bit of snow. You could see snow, 3 to 7, 3 to 5, 3 to 7, 3 to 5. So yeah, that's going to also add up to several feet of snow. That is also decent news though for you guys. And across Arizona and New Mexico, much of the same story. You guys will definitely be adding some watches and warnings for you guys here. So that is that. I do want to show you the European again. Thankfully for this area, you can see the European agrees with the GFS, so not much in terms of that disagreement. It's heavy snow for Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, maybe a bit less. It doesn't show as much for northern Nevada and northern Utah. But still a very heavy snowfall event nonetheless, and you can see the total QPF precipitation amounts are pretty ridiculous. Even though the coastal areas, you can see San Fran right there, 2, 3, 4 inches, not out of the question. Los Angeles getting again also 1, potentially to 2 inches. And in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, quite a bit of that snowfall as well. If we take a look at the precipitation rate, so how this thing kind of plays out according to the European, you can see that it's again very similar. Starts off slow and steady, starts intensifying, maybe a bit again more of a southern track, so not as far north into Nevada, that heavy snow, more into southern central Nevada. Still, the differences are minimal, the impacts are still going to be great. And then you can see it moves off by again Tuesday. And the second system that follows, the European, keeps it a bit weaker compared to the GFS there. All right, let's start talking about the north central United States. This is another area that's going to be seeing some pretty significant impacts, and this is unfortunately where the confidence kind of runs out. Northwest, southwest, the confidence is relatively high for what will happen here. It's still a bit of a mystery. So again, we have this first system coming out. Again, this one kind of fell apart. Didn't really do anything too significant. The second one is going to be a little bit of a different story. So notice that as I put this into Sunday, Saturday, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nothing's going to result of this, even into Monday. What we do have, obviously, that you can't really see on a preset map, but you can tell by looking at these lines, is warm air being pumped in. So right today, very warm for a good portion of these states here, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. That's going to cool off into tomorrow. You can see the rain passes through, and that is definitely something in the short term. But by Sunday, we see that cool air warming up, or pushing back up towards the north, and with that, we see precipitation. But notice that by already early to late Monday, we have snow breaking out across the Dakotas, according to the GFS, again, because the track here is a little bit misleading. Again, the low pressure itself pretty strong. South Dakota, Nebraska, again into Minnesota now. North Dakota seeing some very heavy snowfall rates. You can see a very healthy plume of moisture. Again, this causes some concern for not even heavy rain, but some just severe weather. Yes, even this far north across Chicago, Peoria, Indianapolis, Detroit, Columbus, Lexington, Kansas City, St. Louis. all these cities could have a potential for some severe weather. And again, you won't be seeing widespread tornadoes across these areas. Again, this far north. Further south, that's definitely a possibility. Further north, you know, we're just talking about heavy rain, very heavy downpours, strong winds, small hail, stuff like that. And in the bigger storms, probably some large to even medium size to even large hail. So they're relatively mellow threats, but you could see there's going to be thunderstorms, and they're going to be strong for January standards. Notice the snow across the Dakotas really picking up in terms of intensity, especially as this thing moves through, you know, Iowa, the low pressure itself. Again, mainly done though across Nebraska by the time it's Tuesday, into South Dakota by the time it's late morning Tuesday, and then we see this rain kind of, you can see kind of pretty much just scattered away. We do see a lot more cold air behind this system than the one we're seeing now, and again, that introduces more cold air, and there are some signs that, again, there could be a system that follows directly behind that system on Thursday of next week, and that introduces some snow. That's going to be a bit of a different story, and I'm going to obviously keep you updated on that, but let's just focus on this first storm here, and let's take a look at some of these rainfall accumulations. Again, pretty significant towards Indiana, Illinois, especially where we're going to be seeing some rain into tonight, but do note also some snow towards the north. Notice there's not really much precipitation in between this. It doesn't seem like, according to the GFS, the rain and the snow will be phasing completely here, but notice that the snow where it does fall will be pretty heavy, and I assume some of these amounts are a bit underdone. Assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, these will probably be a bit higher. Still, nonetheless, a very good system. I want to show you the European now, because the differences are pretty incredible. So notice the European, again, takes that system away now, introduces some nice, if you will, warm air into Sunday and Monday. You can see the system making its way there, beginning snow across Nebraska, South Dakota, just like the GFS. But what we do start seeing is way more precipitation consolidating right here, much earlier on compared to the GFS. You can see at this point that European is already much further south than the GFS, even as early as late Monday and into Tuesday morning. And you can see a little bit of ice, that snow, pretty heavy across Nebraska, Iowa, not into the Dakotas, much further south. And you can see very heavy rainfall across the northern areas here where that rain is. Also some severe weather towards the south. That both models support that. And you can see that it may be a smaller swath of that snow, but it's a very intense and it's much further south. And what the European does that is interesting is that it kind of, you know, sweeps the system away, basically causes it to weaken. But look, there could be potentially some signs of a redevelopment. Maybe you could see here some snow across Wisconsin, some wraparound precip, maybe re-intensifying as it hits the northeast coast. There's some models that show some interesting scenarios there, so that's something to note. Precip amounts, regardless, still the Midwest, North Central U.S. will be dealing with some very heavy rain, obviously, and where that snow falls, it will be a little bit of a thinner stripe. It will be heavy though, like very, very heavy. You can see 20 inches plus, if not, or even more in some of these spots. So we'll have to wait and see for that. Again, for now, I don't really have a model that I'm particularly leaning towards. Maybe the European, as a GFS, is slightly trended towards the south. And if you look at a model like the Canadian, it's let's take a look at it. Its overall system structure is way more similar to the European, where that rain and snow completely phase together. It just has a more northern track of the European version, not as far north as the GFS though. So again, you know, this puts a lot of cities like Minneapolis, Rhinelander, Green Bay, Marquette, you know, Fargo, all those cities may or may not be seeing heavy snow depending on this exact track. That will become more and more certain in the next few days. So that is one thing. And you can see the Canadian does something interesting here. It kind of redevelops another system similar to what the European was showing, but this one obviously shows something a bit more intense. So we'll have to wait and see. That is definitely a possibility. For now, no alerts yet for that system. It's still a little bit too far away. South Central U.S. This is where another area that's going to be not necessarily snow, right? But you're going to be impacted by severe weather and obviously heavy rain, quite typically with these winter storms. So we have some rain into tonight and tomorrow. That moves out. Let's start focusing on this big one by Saturday. So not tomorrow, but the day after. Pretty warm temperatures, stay cold. Sunday also, those warm winds. I mean, you could be seeing some very warm temperatures. Unfortunately, we do start seeing a system approach, which means precipitation explodes to Oklahoma, eastern Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and into Arkansas. We'll really start seeing some rainfall developing as we get into the day on Monday. By the time it's Tuesday, we see that first day of severe weather potentially. You can see those bright colors firing up across Arkansas, Missouri, and into, as it approaches the Mississippi River, according to the GFS, some very bright colors there across Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and that continues pretty much into the southeast on the day on Tuesday. So that's a pretty concerning severe weather threat, obviously. Behind this, do note that there is some cooler that moves in, and the GFS flirts some snow across the Panhandle, maybe into Oklahoma, Missouri. We'll have to wait and see. That is definitely a potential little system there. But let's just take a look at the total accumulated precip. You can see not much further out towards the west here, unfortunately, where they need that rain, but it's going to be more of a eastern, south central United States threat. But again, that's the rainfall. There's the storms are probably the way more concerning part. And you can look at the Storm Prediction Center. It has a whole state of Arkansas under a select, which is still what, 5 days away, which is very far out. And you can see much of northern Louisiana, eastern Texas. So it has cities like Dallas, Memphis, Garland, Shreveport, Little Rock. You can see Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, even on this, Missouri, Mississippi. So a lot of states here, Oklahoma, a lot of states getting in on this. And again, it's still far out, so we'll have to wait and see on how this plays out. According to the European model, let's go to its surface and precipitation map, not the snowfall. As you guys really won't be seeing much, again, as I said, much wintry weather from this system. There will be some cooler temperatures behind it, but they're not going to really bring much snow unless it's that separate little one late next week. But again, there's that system. The European does something different. So while it still shows severe weather, you can see it's a bit more it's not as linear. It's a bit more of a kind of a sludge of moisture. This may be enough to deliver or minimize some of the severe weather threat across the eastern, extreme western areas here, but this thing eventually does still form into a very powerful line, and you can see across Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, we start seeing that cold front develop into a little bit later than what the GFS shows into the night on Tuesday. Still though, eventually develops into a very powerful line of storms and spreads into the southeast there. So that is also another scenario we have to watch for. Let's start talking about the southeastern United States now, northeastern United States, as this is another area that's going to have its fair share of impacts, just maybe not as significant as some of the other areas. Notice right now we have quite a bit of warm air out ahead of the first system. Again, this one is pretty puny compared to what's coming with that second one. Do note though, there will be quite a bit of rain and precipitation that sets up across the northeast into on the day really late tomorrow, Saturday, and into early Sunday. Minimal snow, if any at all, and you can see this thing's pretty much out of here by Monday. We see a little bit of cool air behind this thing settle in, but then we see warm air again. So Monday is going to be a warming day. Tuesday pretty warm for a good portion of these areas with some light rain sprinkling in. Again, nothing too heavy. You can see Tuesday also again very warm. Wednesday, this warm flow continues, and the system itself, while it's exploding at this point across the north central United States, it kind of falls apart, and where we start seeing an area of concern is potentially another system redeveloping from the cold front, or another system kind of taking its place. But the point is that there could be, you could see several bands of rain mainly pushing through into the weekend and early part of next week. There will be cold air, beginning to kind of brew towards the north here, and any precipitation that we get into the late part of next week will be falling as snow. And you can see the GFS shows this possibility. So again, you won't be seeing maybe a lot of snow from the first push of precipitation from the storm on Tuesday, Wednesday, but from a kind of a second little system that redevelops across the southeast from the cold front of this system, kind of the energy that's left in the wake of that thing. You can see deliver some snow potentially. Again, not terribly far out, 180 hours out on Friday of next week. New York, Pennsylvania, areas I haven't seen much snow yet would be actually getting clobbered here. And an ice event potentially of some sleet, maybe in New York City. Again, this is very far out, but you can see it's a decent sized storm, and that's something to watch for. So obviously in terms of total precipitation, let's take away that last storm system, but you could see that especially straddling kind of the 50 to 100 mile radius from the St. Lawrence Valley here, quite a bit of rain for the southern Canadian cities, upper New England, not so much maybe for the large cities across the coast, still some. And then obviously if that system comes through, that second one, that could deliver quite a bit of precipitation and quite a bit of snow as well. So there's definitely something to monitor. You can see that some models like the Canadian also show something like that just a little bit further towards the north. So that's definitely something we'll have to watch for. European model shows a little bit of a different event for the northeast. So there's that initial system, again, that initial push of precipitation. Rain, nothing too incredibly heavy though, but then you can see that cold front that is very powerful with this system. That's why this severe weather will be so potent. Starts kind of again slowing down, rephasing, while the European does develop this into another more powerful storm compared to GFS that just kind of wipes this out. You could see introduces some snow into maybe Quebec, cities like that, mainly rain though for other areas, and a little bit of cooler left in its wake, and it doesn't show that slider system that the GFS shows. So that's something interesting, and again, a little bit of a difference there, so don't get too excited about that second one. But yeah, main thing is that there's going to be quite a bit of warm air out ahead of these systems, and that's going to be very noticeable, and then rain, and then again, some cooler, more seasonable air. Let's start talking about the southeastern United States, the last region. Again, this area will also get pretty heavily impacted by its fair share of weather, and again, not in the form of not in the form of snow, but you can see that the first system that's ongoing right now will develop heavy rain into Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia into the tonight and into Friday and into Saturday. It's gone pretty much out of here though by Sunday, but some of these precipitation amounts could be pretty heavy. If you look at them, there could be areas that have 1 to 2 inches of precip, if not more, in some of the isolated areas. After that system pulls away, we'll have very warm air. You can see the warm southerly winds coming in, so no cool down behind that relatively weak system. You can see we have 60s, 70s spreading on ahead, which will pretty much fuel this severe weather threat. And I was talking about this earlier for the south central United States. We could see Arkansas, Missouri. According to the GFS, we have a very powerful line of Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia. We see that cold front spread, and again, how severe it is on Tuesday, we'll have to wait and see. But you know, there are some still model differences, though the Storm Prediction Center already on day 5 shows quite a bit of an area of severe weather. Again, I would not be surprised to see this expanded as that cold front moves further along. It won't be maybe have as much energy further here, right? But still, you know, powerful. And the growing concern is now potentially for a redevelopment of a secondary kind of cold front with this, and this could obviously lead to more severe weather, more heavy rain, but potentially even some snow for some of the northern areas here across West Virginia, maybe Kentucky, northern Virginia, into Maryland and southern Pennsylvania. So that's something we will have to definitely have to watch for, and you can see that the GFS shows that. Obviously, total rainfall from this thing by the time it's next Friday, pretty heavy, especially if you do see that secondary cold front redevelop. So that is definitely a concern. Again, the severe weather is probably the more concerning thing, and you can see that the European shows that first system moving away, again, mainly done by Sunday, so both models agree on that. But then this one, it shows kind of differently, so it's a bit of a slower one, a lot more precipitation. You can see already affecting these areas by late Tuesday, and that cold front really starts kicking into high gear by, according to the European, by Tuesday and during the day. So you can see it's a bit of a different scenario, and you can see kind of stalls out, really doesn't do much movements. That's going to be a heavy rain concern there, also severe weather. And you can see that the GFS did redevelop kind of a secondary one. The European never really deletes, if you will, the first one, and kind of just works off of that one, eventually moving it away by Thursday, but it doesn't show any snow threat for Kentucky or whatnot, as the GFS is showing. So we'll have to wait and see again on that. Total precip amounts, though, nonetheless, whichever model you look at, are very high across the south here. Again, some areas won't see much, others will see way too much. That's kind of how thunderstorms work. But again, the severe weather threat is definitely something that is more concerning. Again, total snowfall, you guys won't be really seeing much here. So if you go back to look at the Storm Prediction Center, that is on Monday, right? So that's the first day of concern. But depending on the details, you know, how things work out, I'd not be surprised to see a slight area, you know, further across Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, into Alabama, Mississippi. These areas could also get, you know, slight, maybe even enhanced. And would not be shocked to see a moderate come out of this system, as this thing does have some pull power. Again, some details are still, you know, yet to be sorted out. Each model has its different outlooks, but, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. As much as I hate saying that, we do. I want to give you guys a brief little overview here, what kind of follows the system for the country. So again, let's just play this out. Notice there's that first one, again, relatively weak compared to the second one. You can see there intensifying across the southwest, and boom, it explodes. Again, pretty incredible, depending on which model you look at. Actually, regardless of which model you look at, both show a very strong cold front, snowy side. They do have their differences, though, the GFS and European. And you can see that as I put this forward, you can see that we do have a reinforcing shot of cold air. So what the GFS does is kind of takes that lingering moisture from that cold front, little system right here from the southwest, and kind of introduces a snow system potentially for the northeast. So that's something we'll have to watch for. European doesn't show that, but the GFS does, and the Canadian kind of does as well. And then afterwards, a pattern, a little bit of a break. You can see maybe some sort of a weak snow system making through its way here across in south central, or kind of central United States, not south central. And then we see another system that comes through, not so clearly from the west, but you can see it kicks off maybe some snow across Iowa, Illinois. Again, potential. We see a lot more colder air moving in a long range, and then potentially, again, snow. So again, as I said, I believe that as we get into January, there will be colder air. Maybe not barbaric like we've been seeing, or like we saw in December. So enjoy the warm-up while it lasts, because later on, it will get cold. But at least it's going to get gradually cold. After the big beast we see this week, there's going to be a slight cool down. It's not going to be incredible. It's going to be a cool down, though. And again, if you look at models like the Canadian, it also shows something similar. So there's that first system tonight and into tomorrow across the south, southeast, into northeast, and into Sunday. And then you can see that big one across the west developing into a pretty large system. Canadian, again, kind of different from the GFS, and European has its own little twist. Shows still a massive system, lots of snow, lots of rain. And then again, just like the GFS, it kind of redevelops a second system here, a little bit stronger though, and you can see it delivers some snow and rain additional amounts. So we'll have to wait and see. That's definitely a possibility. That's by Thursday of next week. And then following that, you can see more cool air, maybe some systems again. You can see breeding some snow pretty far to the south, or much further south than what this storm will bring. And then European is the most southern tracking storm with this. It brings the snow, the storm and the snow, I guess, pretty far towards the south, but it's again kind of different from the GFS. Fully merges the snow and rain here completely, so where that snow falls will be very heavy, severe weather, and you can see boom, 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 this thing's out of here pretty quickly. Does try doing some sort of redevelopment though. And after that, we do see a general cool down with potentially some precip moving in as well. So that is basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.